Okay, welcome everyone to the Gear Up presentation of the Google Tools for Families webinar. My name is Jane Reynolds. I am the parent coordinator for Gear Up for My Success. And my co-host today, also from Gear Up for My Success, are Stephanie Conine, our professional development specialist, okay, and Danny Maddox, our project director.
Hey.
And working behind the scenes is Kiana Cross, our producer. And we are very excited that you have joined us this evening and look forward to sharing this experience with you. Now, have you ever wondered what Gear Up is about? Let's take a moment and let Danny explain.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. I would bet that some of you are probably wondering what Gear Up is or who we are. The full name of our grant is actually Gear Up for My Success. My Success is an acronym that stands for motivating you to seek and understand college and career to enhance student scholarship. That's a mouthful of an acronym, but you'll usually hear our project services referred to as simply Gear Up. All of the Gear Up for My Success partnership schools are here on this map on the screen. So when your student talks about Gear Up, that's us. Or if they go on a campus visit sponsored by Gear Up, they may come home wearing one of our t-shirts. So, okay, back to what I was originally saying, what is Gear Up? We're a federally funded grant program operating out of the K-20 Center at the University of Oklahoma in Norman. Our ultimate goal is to increase the number of students in your school who are prepared for a post-secondary education and to help those students be successful in their transition from high school to college. When we say post-secondary education, we're talking about any type of college or technical training your student may need after high school that will help them on their career path. We work with school leadership, families, teachers, students, and community partners through a variety of programs and events like this one to help us meet our goals. And speaking of grant goals, here they are. All right, so first, we hope to increase cohort academic performance and preparation for post-secondary education. Our cohort of students are 8th and 9th graders this year. Second, we hope to increase high school graduation rates and participation in post-secondary education. And last, it's important to increase family knowledge of options, preparation, and financing. We have a number of different services we provide to help us achieve these goals, and in doing so, helping your student be ready when they walk across that stage in just a few short years. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're going to cover a lot of information, and I want you to know that everything we're doing here tonight will be available for you to review at your own pace after this live event. So don't fret. If you registered for this webinar, we have your email address, and we'll send you links to our YouTube videos and other resources that we'll be talking about this evening. Okay, that about does it for me. So I'm going to pass it back over to Jane, who's going to talk about our objectives for the day.
All right, thank you, Danny. So today our objectives will be showcasing tools that focus on Google Classroom and Google Workspace, formerly known as G Suite. And by the end of this webinar, you will have a better understanding of the Google Education software and how you can use it to work in partnership with your school to help improve academic achievement for your student. And then the goals for our session are first, to provide the opportunity to analyze and identify parental engagement and involvement within a virtual platform. And second, to provide you with an opportunity to engage in the numerous features of Google Classroom and experience how you can support your student in a virtual environment. Now, before we get started, as Danny said, we want you to know that this webinar will be recorded and made available to you in your email and YouTube soon. And that way you can view the webinar at your own pace later. Now we know there is so much to learn and we go through it so quickly that it will be very helpful for you to go back and view it again. So now with that said, let's dive into our first activity.
Welcome everybody to today's session. But before we dive into that first activity, we look forward to assisting you in your journey and understanding the ins and outs of Google Suite/Workspace. We are going to dive right in and take a look at some of the features your student probably utilizes on a weekly or even daily basis. Today, we are going to review the basic features of Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, and a little unknown secret called Google Explore. Now let's move on to our first activity, as I'm sure the anticipation is killing you.
And wait no longer. To help us best meet your needs, we'd like to know what your expectations are for this evening's webinar about Google tools. You can either go to the web address on the screen, or an easier option may be for you to scan that QR code with a smartphone or tablet using your device's camera or whatever QR code scanning app that you use. It will take you to a Google form that asks 2 questions that you see on the screen. What are you hoping to be able to do as a result of participating in this webinar? And what questions do you hope will be answered? Okay, I'm going to stop yapping for a couple of minutes while we wait for your responses.
The awkward silence.
Yeah, teacher would call that wait time, right, Stephanie?
Exactly.
We're not really waiting on anyone to speak, although that is a good point. We need to monitor the chat to see if anybody has asked a question there. So, you know, our last one, it was hard to keep up with all the questions that we had. Oh, it looks like we've already got a lot of responses. Kiana, do you want to pop over to, yeah, let's see what people said. Okay, so this is my favorite part. Okay, so I talked about a Google form, and that's one of the tools that we're going to talk about, but you just participate in a Google form when you answer these questions. And so you can see right here, it breaks down all the responses into a little pie chart. So it looks like the majority of folks want to help my child when struggling with a Google Doc sheet or slide presentation. Yeah, I mean, I have 2 middle schoolers, and fortunately, I have to use Google every day in my work life. So I've been able to really make the shift to virtual learning easily with them. But if I hadn't, that would have been my number 1 choice as well, probably, to try to figure out how to help them. But we have a lot of expectations for our webinar. Learn the basic steps of slides and docs, how to use sheets. So it's pretty evenly distributed, except for the one that has like over half of the folks that they like to help their child when struggling. Okay, so what questions do you hope will be answered? Let's see. How can my child share their work with me? That's really important because, I mean, in a virtual world, we don't really have handouts that we see come home, or you don't often sit down and do like homework with your child. It's all virtual and online. So it'd be great if they could share, you know, with us. I'm trying to look at some of the other responses here. What if my child can't find work completed in Drive? Can they only access work during the school day? No, that's one of the best things about distance learning and asynchronous learning is you can access it at any time, which it depends on when the teacher releases it though and publishes it. So not everything can be accessed always, but Stephanie will talk about that. So it looks like most of the responses we're going to cover here tonight in this webinar, which is good, but we're going to ask for some feedback as we go along the way that will help guide us. And if we do this again, or also let us know what your needs are. So like I said, let us know your thoughts, and I'm gonna, in the chat, you can post a chat at any time during this webinar. So I'm going to toss it back over to you, Stephanie, and you can take it away.
Thank you. So if you notice on your screen, Google has so many products available to use. Even more interesting, these tools are utilized around the world. So we're not only using them in the United States. We know that Google can be very overwhelming, but hope that some of the resources we share with you today will help encourage you to learn more. I use Google every day. I learn new features all the time and even get frustrated and confused too. Some of us older folks struggle a little more mastering the ever-changing world of technology. Sometimes I miss the good old days of growing up in the 80s. Anyone feel that way too? I know I do. So, well, enough of dating myself. Let's learn about some of the features of Google. And I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to share my screen. No. Maybe I'm going to share my screen. Give me a moment here, I apologize. There we go. All righty, so if you notice on your screen, there is a tutorial card. And these are the tutorial cards that were mentioned earlier that will be available to you soon, along with these recordings that you can refer to at a later date if you need to review them again. Additionally, we had another course called Google Classroom for Families, that if there is some information that we may not have touched on today, you can also refer to that webinar or those YouTube videos to gain more information about Google Classroom, along with this webinar today, Google Tools for Families. Do we have any questions yet so far? Do you see anything in the chat? I don't think so. So I think we're good to go to move on to Google Docs. So Google Docs. Google Docs is similar to Google Microsoft Word. A lot of us may have experience with Microsoft Word. Well, Google Docs is pretty similar to that. So I'm going to review with you first on how to access Google Docs. And the first thing you need to do is you need to have access to Google, have a Google account or something. Your student already has this because they utilize Google Classroom or Google Workspace. So what you will do is you will click on the waffle in the upper right hand corner of the screen. And if you notice, there are several options here that you can use. These are tons of applications. This is just a small portion of them that's available in Google Workspace. But we're going to start with Google Docs. So we're going to click on Google Docs, and a new screen is going to open up. And if you notice, we have many templates that are already available to use, but for today's purpose, we're going to use a blank page. So what I will do is I will click on this plus sign, this multicolor plus sign, and again, another page is going to open up and we have a blank screen. And we have already opened up our first Google Doc. I'm going to switch the page here for a second because I've actually already started a document. But that's how we get into a new document. So here's the document that we're going to review today. So if you notice at the very top, we have many ways that we can utilize Google Docs. And we have this toolbar that is located at the very top. And if you scroll over each one of these icons or images, it will actually display for you that this will bold, this will italicize your font, this inserts a link, this attaches an image, and we're going to go over some of these today. Not only are these choices available on this toolbar, you can also use these drop-down menus up here at the top to do the same thing. So it's kind of a redundant tool. So you can use the toolbar or you can use the options up here at top. All right, so let's first name our document. So obviously we need to give all of our documents a name. And to name our document, all we need to do is click up here where it says Untitled Document. And I've already typed in our title, School is Fun, because we all know school is absolutely fabulous and fun, right? So now we have saved our document and we have titled it. But what is really unique about Google is it automatically saves. So you can't really lose your work in Google unless maybe you have an internet glitch or something, but generally it's constantly saving your work all the time. So you don't have to click that save button in Google. All right, so now let's take a look at the page. So if we look at this page, I already have a paragraph here. This is generally what students might do with a Google Doc. They probably will write it on paper, research paper, maybe do something for science, do some research, maybe type something up for their language arts class, social studies, etc. So there's usually a format that they need to set the paper up within. Well, if you notice here, I already have titled our page, but the title of the page is not in the right spot. And we can move that title around. So it's a real simple step to do that. So let's go up to our toolbar, and I'm going to go over to right here where it says alignment. And I'm going to click on the little arrow. And if you notice, I can align it to the left. I can center it just like I normally do for a paper. I can justify it or align it to the right, or justify it again back to the other side. But I want to center this. Okay, so super easy that we can align our title. We can do the same thing with our paragraphs. If I highlight the whole paragraph, I can go in and center the whole thing if I choose. I can align it to the right, or I can justify it even on both sides. Generally, what we like to have it to the left. But a little known secret a lot of students don't know about, remember how we have to indent all of our paragraphs? You remember your ELA teacher, your language arts teacher saying, make sure you indent your paragraphs. I have an ELA background, so I'm very famous for saying that.
Oh yeah, Stephanie, and I remember all the red ink too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have so much red ink now. Google does that for us. If you notice on the page, they do the red ink for us. So, there's a built-in tab for indenting in Google Docs, and all you have to do is place your cursor at the beginning of the paragraph, press the tab key one time, and it indents that paragraph, those 5 spaces that indenting is famous for. It's not necessary to press that space bar, okay? Because when we do that, it kind of makes all the paragraphs uneven if we do that. So let's go back, press the tab key, and there you go, it's indented. But what if I still don't like where it's at? What's really cool about Google Docs is that we have a redo and an undo button up here at the upper left-hand corner of the toolbar. And if you notice, if I click undo, it takes it back to where it originally was. If I click redo, it puts it back to where I would like to have it. So a lot of times we make mistakes. We like to use this undo and this redo button. All right, so because as Danny mentioned, that red ink, well, even though that we still like to make comments and stuff with the papers, even though it's in a digital format, we still like to have our paragraphs double spaced. So let's learn how to do that. So what I will do is highlight the paragraph. Maybe I have the whole document typed up. I'd highlight the whole document. I'm going to go back up here to our toolbar. Now on my toolbar, it does not have the spacing on here, but I can expand my toolbar by clicking on these 3 dots. And it's going to give me a few more options. So if you notice the arrow that's pointed up and down, this is going to be our line spacing. I'm going to click on this, and we have several choices. We can do 1.5. I don't like 1.5 because I'm an ELA teacher. I like double spacing. Now we have a double spaced document. Perfect. Okay, so now we formatted our paragraph. Okay, we've looked at spacing. Now look at the errors. So if you notice, there's a couple of those red lines. That means there's something going on and you probably should check it. So if you hover over that red little line there, it's actually going to suggest to you that it looks like this is the word since is not being used in context correctly. So it's suggesting the correct way to use since, and we can click on that and it'll change it for us. And the infamous letter I, this is the fault of texting these days. So we like to have our letter I's capitalized still. So if I hover over that, it's actually going to tell me I need to capitalize that. If I click on it, it corrects it for me. So make sure your students, if you are assisting them maybe in reviewing some of their work and they have a lot of these red, maybe blue, which stands for grammar, they're not using their grammar correctly, maybe punctuation is wrong, they're missing a comma or something, then they probably need to take a look at the suggestions. Another way that suggestions can be utilized is comments within the documents. And this is a great tool for teachers and even peer evaluations or student-to-student interaction. They can make this document interactive. So the way to do that is I can come up here and maybe highlight a word. And if you notice, I have a plus sign and I have a suggest edits. Well, if I click on this plus sign, it says add comment. And now, let me move my page over, I can add a comment. Okay, I click comment, And now when the student goes into their paper, they're going to see my comment, and they can actually respond to the teacher's comments if they click on the comment. If you notice, a new comment box does open up. So this is a great way for students to interact with one another, or teachers to interact with students, or students to interact with teachers. Maybe they have a question about a worksheet that's been made by a teacher in Google Docs. They can comment on teachers' papers too. Okay, it's not just the teacher commenting on the student. All right, so sometimes a student may need to insert an image into a document. So again, super simple. We're going to go back up here to our toolbar. And if you notice, we have insert an image right here. And I'm going to, you can either search the web, you can utilize photos from their Google Drive. Maybe they have an image on their computer. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my images, see what we have here. I know I have something in here I can include. Here we go. So now I've inserted an image into our document, but the image is really big and it's kind of messed up my paragraph a little bit. It looks a little off. So it's super easy to resize it. So I'm going to click on the image, and if you notice a blue box around the image, and I can adjust it by maybe grabbing onto the side, but that kind of distorts the image, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to go back up here to that undo button and restore the image to what it originally was. And it's best to take the image from the corner, click on it, and then drag it to the size that we want. But if you notice at the bottom of the image, there's additional choices here. Well, we want the image to be incorporated within our text. So I'm going to click Wrap Text. And so now the image is incorporated within my text. If I don't like that, again, I can click the undo button. I'm going to change my mind again. I'm going to go back to the redo button. So it's super simple to incorporate an image within the text in Google Docs. Okay, one last thing I'm going to kind of go over with you is edit history. So another way to make this document interactive between students, parents, and teachers is you can go in and see what has been edited or the edit history. So if I click on this last edit history, I'm going to notice a new screen opens up, and it tells me every time that I have edited this document. If I click on something particular here, it's going to take me back to this version, or I click on this one, it's going to take me back to the version that I'm working in. So this is a great tool that teachers can use to see what edits have been made, how the student has been progressing, see how long they've been working, and the same thing for parents and families too. You can utilize this tool to see your students' progress. To get out of this version or this edit history, I'm going to click on this back arrow in the upper left-hand corner. And it's going to take me back to my original page. Now, the last thing I wanted to review with you in Google Docs is that famous Explore button that I was talking about earlier. It's this little inconspicuous little image down here at the bottom right-hand corner. If I click on this Explore button, a new screen will open up on the right-hand side of the page. Now, this is an awesome tool, especially for students who are doing research, or they need to incorporate images, etc., within their doc. They can use this search tool to search for their document. So I'm going to go ahead and search school is fun. And if you notice, I have three options. I can utilize the web. Maybe I will utilize the web to find research, scholarly research to incorporate into my essay that I'm writing. Maybe I want to find an image, or I can actually go to my drive and incorporate information from my drive into my document. But I'm going to incorporate an image. So I'm going to click on this School is Fun. And if you notice, it has exploded the image for me on the page, opened up a new page. And if I just click the Insert button at the upper center of the page, it automatically inserts to my Google Doc. Super simple, right? So as we did earlier, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to resize my image, make it a little bit smaller. And then if I want to incorporate into my text, I can use that wrap text feature again on the bottom of the page. So as you can see, I know I reviewed a ton of information in Google Docs. Does anybody have any questions at this time about Google Docs? I know it is a lot of information. Let's see what we got going on in the chat.
Yeah, we do have questions.
Okay, I see. We have, does my child's teacher automatically get a copy of all the work? Yes and no, and I think this is a really good question. So in Google Classroom, if your teacher assigns a Google Doc to your student, they will automatically get a copy of this document, this Google Doc. However, if your student creates the document on their own and then they need to submit to the teacher, then they need to share it with their teacher or with a parent, whoever they need to share this document with. Maybe it's another student, maybe they're working on group work. And it's really simple to do that. So all I need to do is go up to the share button and say I want to share my work with Mr. Maddox, Mr. Danny Maddox. And I'll type in the search bar for his name, for his email. And if you notice it pops up, and then I can click send, and I have shared this Google Doc with either a teacher, instructor, or another family member. Super easy to do and super quick. If you cannot find their email, did you get it?
Yeah, I was going to say, as your teacher, I have already been notified that Stephanie Conine has shared School is Fun with me.
Awesome. Good deal. So super simple. If they can't find the email address in the domain that they're working with, which is their school district, they can type in a personal email address for the parent who they want to share it with, or family member. So super simple. Do we have any other questions in the chat? Okay, so great. So most of this, as I said earlier, was very recognizable to Microsoft Word. Which most of us, that's what we started with when we were working with computers and word processors. So hopefully much of it is easily recognizable. So Danny, I know your kids use, they're learning virtual. They use and know about Google Docs. Do they use them a lot for school?
Yeah. I mean, all the time. So, and they also, you had talked about Zoom. They use Google Meet a lot, which is real easy. I could, when you clicked on the waffle earlier, I saw that Meet. And so, we use Zoom all the time at K20. So Meet is a little bit different, but, most, virtual conferencing stuff is all real similar. So, but yeah, they use Google Docs always.
Always, yeah. Yeah, so that's good to know, because I think that whether they're working virtual, blended learning, or in school, they're always going to have to utilize Google Docs in some form or fashion. So another application that they're going to use all the time is something called Google Slides, which I'm going to review next. So similar to Google Docs, Google Slides has some of the same features, but it's a presentation software similar to Microsoft PowerPoint, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. So to get into Google Slides, you are going to do the same thing that is similar to Google Docs. You'll click on the waffle in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll click on Slides. And again, we have the blank option, or we have several templates that we can choose from. You're also going to have template options when you actually go into a blank document for Google Slides. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that multicolored plus symbol again. And now I have a Google slide. So if you notice on the right-hand corner of your screen, there is a column, and this is the themes that you can choose for your Google Slides. And there's several themes that you can choose. And additionally, students can create their own themes. I'm not going to dive into quite creating your own theme today, but we can choose any one of these that's most desirable to you or your student. We'll go ahead and click on this one. And I have created my theme for my Google slide. I no longer need to be in this portion of the screen, so I'm going to X out of that. And now we are in the editing portion of Google Slides. First thing we need to do is title our slide. And I'm going to be super simple, and I'm just going to say title. All righty. Okay, so just like Google Docs, we title it the same exact way. Okay, so just like Google Docs too, is we have this toolbar up here at the top, and it is almost exactly like Google Docs. There may be a couple different things, like we have the shapes, inserting lines. We have the same thing, inserting images and inserting text boxes. But again, we also can use these drop-down menus here at the top. But I like to use the toolbar. It's the simplest and most easy way to use Google Slides. So we've selected our theme, and now we're going to look at this left-hand column over here. This is really important when we're editing. If you notice, I only have one slide right here. So if I would like to add an additional slide, I can do that by right-clicking on our mouse, and I can click on New Slide, and it creates a new slide for me. If I don't want to use that slide, I can actually skip that slide, but we don't really need to use that right now. That is one option. Maybe I want to duplicate the same slide. Maybe I don't like the background. I can change the background color of the slide. We have gradient. Let's make it nice, pretty yellow. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, it's super simple to change the format of these slides. Maybe I don't like the layout of the slide. That's another feature that we can use in this editing stage of Google Slides. Maybe I need 2 columns for my text. Okay, very, very simple. You can make it your own and make it as, what word am I trying to say here? You can make it as complicated and artful as you choose to, okay? But it's very easy to use, I promise. Another feature, maybe I don't like the order of my slides, and all I need to do is click on the slide, and I can click and drag it to the position that I prefer for my presentation. Your students will use Google Slides in class, but your teachers also like to use this to create assignments for students also, and for their presentations. So they may have different directions on each slide and may have different steps created for an assignment they need to complete. All right, so let's look at this blank slide that we have right here. And if you notice, we have 2 different text boxes. Maybe I need to add a text box. Maybe I need 3 text boxes. So let's go ahead and add a text box. We'll click on this text box up here at the very top. And then I will click down here at the bottom, and easy peasy, I've created that new text box. And now I have 3 text boxes on my Google slide. So you can create as many text boxes as you need. Additionally, same thing as Google Docs, you can insert an image using the insert feature through Google Drive, Google Photos, upload from the computer, or you can search on the web. You also can use that famous Explore button down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So why don't we go ahead and use that Explore button again? And if you notice, even in Explore for Google Slides, they will suggest layouts for you, for your theme, for your Google Slides. You can use this or choose not to, it's up to you. But we're going to use it to, let's have that photosynthesis and see what comes up. So if you notice, maybe I want to insert a web link. I'm doing some research for a science project and I need to incorporate photosynthesis. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this Britannica. And it's taken us to the Britannica page that they suggested in Google Explorer. And I want to link this into our Google Slides. So I'm going to go up here to the URL bar up here at the top. I'm going to left click then right click to copy the URL, and then I'm going to click back to the tab to insert our link. So if I put my cursor on the Google slide where I'd like to insert the link, I will right click, link. I'm going to type photosynthesis here. Now I'm going to insert my link. And now I've created an interactive document in our Google slide. So if you are presenting or if you have a teacher that you would like to access this link, all they have to do is scroll over this, and now this is going to take us directly to that link that we looked at and we researched in Google Explorer. All right, so kind of went over Google Slides real quick. As you can see, it's very similar to Google Docs, just a couple little changes. Do we have any questions at this time about Google Slides?
I have a question, Stephanie.
Okay.
This is what a presentation will look like for, is that what our presentation is going to look like for an audience? Because there's a lot of extra information on the screen that I don't believe I want my audience to see if it were my presentation.
Okay. Absolutely, yes. So no, right now we're in the editing portion of Google Slides. So that's a really good question, is how do we make this present mode like we're sharing with you today? Because everything that we're sharing with you today has been created on Google Slides. So what I need to do is to put this in Google, in present mode, is actually just go up here to the upper right-hand corner of my slide screen, click present. And if you notice, now all of that extra information is gone. We're not in the editing portion of Google Slides anymore. And whoever's presenting, you just need to click the arrow buttons on your keyboard, or you can use your mouse to click back and forth between the different slides. Super easy. But if you notice on the page, there's nothing on there now. So how do I exit out of this? All you need to do is press the escape button on your keyboard, and now you are out of, you're back in the editing mode of Google Slides. So any additional questions? Looks like we might have one.
Yeah, we've got one in the chat.
Does my child have to put her name on her Google work for her teacher to know it is her work? Ooh, that is a very good question. No, they do not. Because what will happen is when it is shared with the teacher, it'll automatically have the student's name on the assignment, whether it's assigned in Google Classroom or whether the student creates the assignment themselves. But if they want to be double safe, absolutely put your name. It's a good habit to be in, to put your name on that document. Because, you know, hopefully we're going back and forth from being submitting things digitally and still things on paper too. We still have to practice putting our names on the upper right-hand corner, right? So
I mean, Stephanie, how much time did you spend when you taught middle school trying to track down whose papers, the no-name papers? That was a big struggle for me.
And it always, you know, and you always have that corner in your room where it says, who owns me? And then you have all these papers stapled up to the wall, and it breaks your heart. It would break my heart, because it's like they did it and they're not getting credit for it. So absolutely, you want to make sure to be safe. I would go ahead and put your name on it though. All right. Okay, so now I have reviewed Google Docs and Google Slides with you. I'm going to stop sharing. And I hope this was some information for you to help your student out at home, or even you can use this at home yourself, okay? So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to Jane, our resident expert, and she is going to go over Google Sheets with you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. And now, as Stephanie said, we have learned about Google Docs and Google Slides with some bonus information about Google Explorer. And now it's time to learn about Google Sheets. And let's see if I can share my screen. We'll give it a shot here. Okay, so we are now going to talk about Google Sheets. And here is our tutorial card that shows us kind of some of the things that we'll learn, like what are cells, how do you use in-cell calculations, what makes a spreadsheet have different cells work together, how do you merge them, how do you add borders, and how to make a lot of text fit into cells. So those are the things that we'll be looking at. Now, the first thing that you'll want to do is know how to open up a Google Sheet. So from your Google account, you can click on New in the upper left-hand corner. I don't know if you can see my purple cursor here. We will click on New, and then we're going to click on Google Sheets. And this opens up a new document for us. At the top, you see it says it is an untitled spreadsheet. Once it finishes loading, whenever I hover over that, let's see, it should let us rename the sheet. And so we're just going to rename that My Spreadsheet. There you go. Very simple. Okay, we're going to close this out because we're not going to be working from this page. Instead, we're going to go back to our original document. And on your tutorial card, you will see this link. When you get your resources, you will want to click on that link, and that will take you to our lesson. When you click on Make a Copy here, that creates a unique document for you that you can make changes to, and no one else will be able to see those. That is strictly your document. Okay, again, whenever we come back up to the top of the page in the upper left-hand corner, if you can see my cursor in purple, we have opportunity to rename. I'm just going to take off the copy of. So I click there, I click in front of getting and just hit backspace, and there you go. All right, so let's get into sheets. One of the things I want you to notice here in the center of the page, it tells you the original document from Alice Keeler can be found here. When you hold your mouse over here, there you see the link. And it's the same as what you're seeing here, but this is just another way to get this same document. Now we follow the red arrow down to the bottom of the page. And I'm going to have to move our people out of the way because I've got it in the wrong spot. Okay, now I can see the bottom of my page. You will see there are several tabs here. The first one is Welcome. Notice that's green, whereas the others are gray. The one that is green is the tab that's open. Each tab is a unique sheet that has its own information. So whenever you click on a tab, then you'll be able to see the information for that particular sheet. You'll notice that there's an arrows on the right-hand side, and you can see my purple cursor here. Click on that arrow, and that will scroll and let you see the rest of the items on the tabs there. When you come over to the left of the screen, you'll see the pancake. It says All Sheets. We click on that. This is another way that we can navigate through the sheets. Just select the sheet that you want to go to, and it will take you right to it. So now we're going to move on to step one. Now in this spreadsheet, our instructions tell you a spreadsheet can organize data. Try typing things into the cells. Also try making the column widths wider and the row heights taller. So it's telling us to do something with cells. So the definition of a cell is basically any single square that you see on the page. That is a cell. Okay, so and then you have your columns from the top and your rows from the side. So try making the column widths wider and the row heights taller. To do this, hover the mouse between the letters on the tops of the columns. So here is where they're talking about. And or in between the numbers to the left of the rows. And this is the numbers that they're talking about. When the arrow changes, you can hold down the mouse to increase the row height and the column width. When you are done typing in at least 5 cells and have changed a column and row width, go on to the next tab. Okay, we're only going to type in one cell. So let's see, we'll do some Mother Goose here. Hickory, dickory, dock. We'll spell dickory weird today. The mouse, the cows, how about that? Ran up the clock. All right, now you see that exceeds the width of the cell. We want to make it fit. So we are going to come up to C. And now I have my arrows. When I click and hold my mouse, it put the line all the way down to the bottom, and that lets me move the mouse or that width of that cell to be as wide as I want it to be. And you can see now the cell is much wider. We can do the same thing with the row. Click and hold the mouse and just drag, and that will increase the height of the row. Okay, very simple. That's the end of step 1. Let's move on to step 2. Okay, now we began step 1 with the definition of the cell as being a single rectangle you see outlined on the page. Now, every cell in the sheet has a unique name, and this is very important to the function of the spreadsheet. So that's what this lesson will teach us about. So you name each cell by first listing the column, the cell, can't read today. Okay, the letter of the column the cell is in, followed by the number of the row. Practice naming each of the yellow cells by typing the cell address into the yellow cells. When you are done, go to the next tab. So you'll see here, this very first cell, they put a number in for us, C6. When you look at the row on top, you can see that C is darker than all of the rest. That lets us know that that is row C. When you look at the numbers down the side, you will see that 6 is darker than all the rest. That lets us know that that is row 6. Another way that we can find the name of this cell is to go up to the left-hand corner, right underneath the toolbar, and you will see the number C6. That gives us the name of this cell. So we're going to click on another yellow cell, and I see that my E is darker, so I'm going to put in E. And I see that my 13 is darker, so I will also put in 13. Well, I will really put in 13. Okay, when we hit enter, it tells us we did excellent. Okay, so when you get this, your resources, you can practice this some on your own. Let's go on to step 3. Okay, in step 3, they tell us you're doing great. Now here is something about spreadsheets that is really cool. Did you know each cell is a mini calculator? That is right. The trick to using the spreadsheet as a calculator is to start your math expression with an equal sign. So keep in mind, they say start with the equal sign. So for each math expression below, double click in the cell and type an equal sign in the front of the math expression. Okay, so when we double click, that allows us to, that brings the cursor into the cell so that we can type inside the cell. You see my cursor flashing here in this 3 plus 4 plus 5. And I'm going to use my arrow key to take it all the way to the beginning of the cell and then put in my equal sign. When I hit enter, that calculates for us. So now we have an amount. Now, if you don't want to have to double click, you can click on the cell just one time or hit enter until you get to that cell. And you will see, again, underneath the toolbar, just to the right of the name of the cell are the contents of the cell. So I will put my equal sign now in front of the equation and hit enter. And now we have a result. We shall move on.
I wish I would have known this, Jane, when they were, when I was learning Excel, because I kept putting at the end. It took me a long time to figure that out. So
Yes, it's so funny. Excel, or in this case, Sheets. I learned Excel first, and so I kind of go to that one, and they're slightly different,
yeah.
but they are not user-friendly. This is not easy because it's not intuitive. But once you get used to using it, it's not that bad. All right, in step 4, it tells us, you are now ready to write your own formula. In the yellow cells below, start with an equal sign and write your own math problem. So again, remember, as Stephanie pointed out, we have to start with our equal sign if we want it to create an equation. And now we're going to put in 3 plus 7. Oh, you got to hit plus, not equals. Forgot to hit that shift key. Okay, plus 7 plus 5. Now I picked something that was really easy to figure out. That's 15. And then we hit enter, and that gives us our result. So now the next instructions below tell us, look at the cells above the menu option View, choose all formulas to show the formula you wrote instead of the results. And then don't forget to go back to the View menu and turning the All Formulas option off. So just above your toolbar, there are tabs that you can choose from. We are going to select View. And it doesn't really say all formulas, it says show formulas. So we're going to click on show formulas. And now you see my equation is back in the box. I want it to show the answer instead. So I'm going to go back to view. And again, take the check mark off of all formulas by clicking on it. And now again, it shows my result. Let's move on to step 5. Okay, in step 5, it tells us that we are going to try cell referencings. This means that you refer to a cell instead of typing in a number. So earlier we named our cells. The cell names are very important in Excel, very important. They make working with Excel, that's what makes it wonderful. And I've got to remember we are talking about sheets, but again, Excel and sheets are very, very similar. If you learn one, you can do the other. Okay, so our instructions tell us in the yellow cells below, notice the formula is referencing the values in cells B4, C4, and D4. Double click on the yellow cell and place an equal sign in front of the formula. So before we do that, I want to make this very easy for you to see. So I'm going to select these D, C, and B4, and we're going to change the color so that they stand out and be a little bit different for us here. Okay, so B4 is our 6 value. Whenever I click on this, you see B4 in the corner. That is the name of that box. C4 has a value of 2. You see here, the C4 is the name again of this cell. And then the last one, D4, has a value of 9. You'll see D4 in the column. That is the name of that cell. So instead of putting numbers in, we've put in the name of the cell that holds the value we want to use. So we're going to put an equal sign. I double clicked. I'm going to back arrow so I can put an equal sign in front of that and hit enter. And we have a value, which I think that is so cool. I love Excel. I love spreadsheets. I love sheets. Okay, so there's another way that we can do that. Anytime you put an equal sign at the beginning, it lets you know, or it lets Excel, sheets, spreadsheets, it lets the spreadsheets know that you're going to enter an equation or some kind of formula. Instead of typing in B4, C4, and D4, I've got my equal sign here. My cell is selected. You see it's outlined in blue. Now I'm going to go up and click on B4, and you will see it inserted it for me. And then I shall hit plus, click on the next cell, C4, and then I will hit plus again and hit D4. And I'll hit enter, and you see we have the same value. That is one of the things I absolutely love. It really comes in handy whenever you're working with data. Okay, step 6.
Hey, Jane, so I just did a time check. I think we're kind of in a bit of a time crunch because we've got about 3 minutes left. So do you want to go through these quickly, or do we want, since these are all available to everybody who's watching, do we just want to provide it after the webinar is over?
The last 2 are really quick.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah. Okay, thank you, Danny.
Sure.
Okay, our instructions tell us to merge cells together, highlight multiple cells. Then click on the merge cells icon on the toolbar and highlight the cells below, and then click the tool. Oh, really? Click on the merge cells icon and type in your name in the merged box. Okay, so here is a picture of the merge cells icon. And I always have trouble finding this one that's up there. Okay, so we're first going to select our box. And I want to make it easy for you to see. So we'll select outline, and I want to outline all the boxes with borders. And then we will click on our merge cells button. It always moves on me. I don't know why. And it doesn't really, it's just me. It's right there. Oh, I haven't selected it. That's why. Got to see. Now I'm in a hurry. Okay.
Sorry, it's my fault.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we have merged our cells. So we'll let you see that one more time. We'll hit undo. I want that to go away. So I've outlined all of the boxes. I have selected the section that I want to merge. We'll come up to the merge cells icon that matches the picture here. Click that, and there you see now all of our cells are one box. Let's move on to step 7. Okay, in step 7, it tells you that we want to create borders on the T-chart and create a single line under the height and width and create a single line between the height and width values. So this is in fact, it's exactly what I just did on the last slide, but I didn't instruct you on. So here is our example. If you can see my mouse moving, and we want to put an underline beneath height and width. So we'll come back up to the boxes as they pictured here. And I want this to be an underline. So I find the picture that shows the underline and we click there and you can see it has underlined it. Now I'm going to select the height row. You could select either row. You just want to make sure that you select the correct border that goes with it. So height, I want to add a line to the right. There is our right border. And we have completed this task. Now let's move on to step 8. So on step 8, we're going to do text wrapping. So you will see the wrap icon here. And here it is on our toolbar. So we're going to click on this cell and then we're going to tell it to wrap. So we're clicking. You see that now it's highlighted in blue. I'm going to come up to the wrap button that I just showed to you. Merge. Where did it go? How does this happen to me? Okay, there we go. Nope, that's vertical align. There, now the symbol you will see matches the very first one in the line. Now we will tell it to wrap by selecting the circular arrow there, and it has wrapped the text. Now we're going to unwrap this box. We want it to go out into a single line. So we've selected in blue. We come back to our text wrapping symbol, and now we're going to tell it to go out into a straight line. And there you go. So you have now completed the lesson of the basic steps of working with sheets. And again, I want you to notice at the bottom of the page, there are some additional practice tabs. So when you get to your resources, you will be able to review the steps 1 through 8 that we just went through, and then move on to the practice sheets on your own. Now let's take a moment and debrief. And I'm going to give the screen back to, there we go. All right, great. So for our debrief, we are going to do a quick and easy activity called stoplight. So red means that you're still new and learning. Many of you may feel this way, that this one is the best fit for you. Now, if you've not worked much with Google Tools or something very similar, this may be where you would fit. Yellow, you're feeling good, but you have some questions. This may be where you are if you have a little experience with Google Tools and now feel like you have a better grasp on how to use the tools and still have more to learn. And green, feeling like an expert. Now, our experienced Google Tools user will most likely be in this group, and maybe you've picked up something new today. And then Danny is going to take us from here, except that he must have had some computer trouble. So we'll give you guys a moment, let you select your response, and then we'll chat.
So it looks like we have some responses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. This is my favorite part of Google Forms is like this red, yellow, green stoplight. You can't really tell it what colors you want in the pie chart. So I love that green is orange, yellow is red, and blue is, yellow is red and red is blue. See, I can't even say it without it getting all weird in my head. Okay, so understanding of Google Docs, mostly green, indicated by the orange. And by the way, your students won't really ever see this side of it. Well, they might, but typically teachers don't ask. It doesn't often look like this. This was just how ours looks. So let's see slides. Okay, it's about half and half. There, I don't see any reds there. Google Sheets, there's 36%. Most looks like most responses said they're either yellow or maybe red. So, and that's what we would expect to see out of Google Sheets, because that was by far the most complicated thing that we covered tonight. And like Jane said, once you know it, like you really love it because you can use it a lot in a lot of different ways, but it's just getting there. So, so what this tells us is that the next time we design one of these, we may want to spend a little more time on Sheets or think about like, just kind of reflect on what we did in Sheets, because we at the K-20 Center and Gear Up are always revising our services to try to better meet the needs of our students, families, and stakeholders out in the communities. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us this evening. We know we've covered a lot, like we said in the beginning, but feel free to review the video, stop, pause, rewind. If you're seeing this, you are watching the non-live version of the webinar. So you'll notice here on your screen that there's a survey. Your feedback is really important to us because we use the feedback to, like I mentioned a moment ago, guide all of our development of our services. So one last thing we'd like to ask you to do before you go is to complete a survey. We want to know the impact of the webinar and what schools and grade levels that we've assisted. So if you don't mind, if you would scan that QR code on your screen with your phone, or you can click on the tiny URL in the description of the video, and it will take you to a really brief survey so we can just know who has attended and that sort of thing. So thanks again for joining us, and we really hope to see you soon in our next webinar. I'm going to do the thing everyone makes fun of and do a Zoom wave goodbye.